Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Megan, I'm glad that you're back here. We get a chance to do one together. That's always cool.
Yep.
Today, we are going to be talking about the difference between chatterbaits and spinnerbaits and when you use them and when you don't. I got to tell you, when chatterbaits first came out, I kind of looked at it and like, well, all this is what's the difference? It's just, I'm going to throw it in the same places I throw a spinnerbait. I love throwing a spinnerbait. Why would I even start throwing a chatterbait? Well, chatterbait catches fish, that's for one thing. But there are some differences in terms of when you would throw one versus the other. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Guys, stick around. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everyone. I'm Megan Fuller.
I'm Mark Fisher.
Before we start, I want to say please subscribe to our channel. This is going really well and we'd like to grow it. And if you like the videos, push the like button. Please send us your comments and also your ideas of different videos you would like us to do so that we can throw out content that is actually important to you guys. So thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk about chatterbaits and spinnerbaits. Like I said, Megan, when I first heard about a chatterbait, I thought it was literally just a replacement for a spinnerbait. Okay. And I've been throwing spinnerbaits for a long time. I love throwing spinnerbaits, and they got a real secure spot in my arsenal in terms of knowing when to throw them. One of the things that I want to point out is that when a spinnerbait is going through the water, in my opinion, that spinnerbait does not look like one fish or one minnow or one bait fish. I believe that a spinnerbait is really looking like two smaller fish and then a larger bait fish that's trying to that's either swimming with it, or maybe even this bait fish is going to feed on those smaller bait fish.
Okay.
In my world, smaller fish get eaten by bigger fish, and then
pretty likely equation.
But then small, big, medium, those are all relative. So, for example, this fish might eat this fish, but then there's a bass that's going to eat this fish. That's the way I look at a spinnerbait. A school or smaller fish being kind of followed by a larger bait fish, and now the bass has a chance to just make a meal out of all of them or some of them and is going to go after that spinnerbait. That's the way I look at it. Chatterbait, on the other hand, in my mind, I don't think that imitates multiple fish. That is one bait fish, and it's got a lot of vibration and a lot of flash, and so that's a bait fish that is going to catch the attention of a bass, and so a bass is going to key in on it as food, but that spinnerbait is going to catch the attention as well. Go ahead.
So this thing is not trying to replicate those.
No, this blade is adding flash and thump, but it's not really. This blade here is not the same as the willow leaf blades or Colorado blades on a spinnerbait.
Got it.
This blade is just moving back and forth, thumping, and again, it's creating flash, but it's, in my opinion, that flash is all part of that one fish, imitation fish, that's going through the lake. So keeping those factors in mind, then I kind of look at when do I throw a spinnerbait versus when do I throw a chatterbait. So there are some places that are going to be the same. Hey, if I want to throw a spinnerbait over grass, throwing a spinnerbait over grass is going to attract a bass that's in the grass to come up and hit. Whether it's a school of fish going by or one loud thumping fish going by, that fish is going to come up out of the grass and grab it.
So it doesn't matter.
However,
Okay.
A chatterbait coming over the grass and getting stuck in the grass, which is how we fish that, where you actually get that chatterbait to get stuck in the grass and then you rip it out, that's going to create a reaction strike where that chatterbait has thumped along. The bass's lateral line feels that, knows that it's there, and then all of a sudden it stops because it gets stuck on the grass. And then as an angler, you rip it out and it starts thumping up. That's going to get a reaction bite.
Okay.
You're not going to get that with a spinnerbait. Okay, so if the bass seem to be in the grass a little deeper, more in there and not just hanging around the top, a chatterbait may be the better choice out of the two to entice strikes. Again, you understand that, yes, we talked about what the differences were,
right?
But in this situation, a chatterbait may gain more strikes.
Okay, I get it.
Another thing that is an issue is we know that bass hang out in heavy wood cover.
Okay.
Well, chatterbaits are not great at pulling through wood. And we actually have a video coming up to talk about some of the ways you can make a chatterbait a little bit better at getting through wood. A lot of times what happens, and we'll talk about this briefly, when a chatterbait goes over wood, it has a tendency to roll, and then when it rolls, it gets stuck. Now you're snagged. A spinnerbait is great at going over cover. That spinnerbait, in fact, a spinnerbait triggers a lot of bites when it deflects off of cover, and those blades that are going and then all of a sudden they stop for a minute and then they start. If you've got a bass that's sitting on that cover and those blades are going and then it stops and then it goes again, that will trigger that bite right then and there. So if you're fishing around sticks, trees, bushes, maybe a spinnerbait is a better bait to throw than the chatterbait. Okay, and again, so think about it. Would a school of little minnows be hovering around a brush pile?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this spinnerbait would be a good imitator in that kind of situation.
So this is good for grass, but
chatterbaits are well known for grass.
But that's pretty much good for almost like everything else, it sounds like.
And this would be good for grass too if the fish weren't deep into the grass. I'm just saying that there are times when these would be interchangeable. Okay. But there are also times when one is going to outproduce the other. And I'm just kind of listing some of those times when one might outproduce the other, or one might be a little bit more cumbersome to throw. Like, for example, the chatterbait when you're fishing around a lot of wood and things like that. Okay. But again, I think that part of what I was just talking about a few minutes ago with what do these baits imitate or resemble, and I think that's something to keep in mind too when you're making a decision about which bait to throw. And if you're not getting bit on one, I'd certainly move to a different one and see whether that triggers that bite better than the other did.
And it kind of sounds like the time of year or the way what's going on. Like you talked about schools of fish, that's gonna be more.
That's a great example. And again, I'm gonna be referring to Rayburn a lot because I'm gonna be going down there. I'm gonna have both of these tied on. My first guess is going to be a spinnerbait because I do believe the shad are schooled up, and so I'm going to be trying to imitate that type of thing.
Okay.
But depending on how cold it is, and if I hit a cold stretch in Texas, now my thinking is, well, if there's some bass in the grass, they're going to be deep. They're going to be snugged into that grass. They're not going to be just scooting around the tops. This isn't going to work at that point, and you can bet a chatterbait, maybe in red, is going to come out, and I'm going to try and entice those fish by getting that chatterbait hung in the grass, pop it out, and get those reaction bites. Because again, we talked about how cold bass, you're going to have to entice them through a reaction strike to get them to bite. So Guys, I hope this information is useful. If you have any comments, we'd love for you to send them in. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back again tomorrow with another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors.
Stay channeled.